So the water pump's seized up. It's time to get this thing out. We're gonna go ahead and set up the camera and we'll film as we pull this thing out. See what we got going on here. Let's go. So it looks like we got a steering pump bracket, some bolts here going into the block, intake and outtake of the water pump. We got a hose down here. Figure that out. Got the alternator hooked on. There's a bracket for the alternator. 2 more pumps there. Doesn't look like I gotta do anything with the coolant, even though it looks empty as can be. Okay. One alternator bracket. Now looks like I can get to the next one. A little bit of a, which one's first here? Might have to take this housing off for the fan in order to get the bolt that I need to get the bracket out to get to the water pump. So let's do that. Okay, it should be all loosened up on this side. We'll switch around and go work on the other side. Minutes later. Hooray! Okay, you might be wondering why I just got done doing all of that. Well, all of that is so I can get to that bolt right there. So this should pop off. And now I can get to that bolt. Hooray! Okay, a quick look on the other side here. We got these 2 bolts here that are holding the water pump. You can see the hose there at the bottom, and then it's connected right there to the power steering. So we'll get those loosened up, get this hose apart. One step closer. I imagine those hoses are gonna be a little hard coming off. Okay, the hoses are all loose, they're not off. The bolts are out, so now we just have to go ahead and separate this from the engine. Let's see what that takes. Turns out, psych, that is not the last bolt. There's actually one that's hidden behind the fuel pump. See if I can show you here. Get some light for you. Yep, right in there behind this darn fuel pump is the last bolt. So fortunately, I found it before I got into the serious whacking with a hammer or anything like that. Sometimes you just stop and check. But we're gonna have to take the fuel pump off, it looks like, or at least loosen it enough to move it. Of course, once you loosen it, there's probably a gasket or something that's there. And once you got that gasket off, who knows what the heck's going on. So we'll take the fuel pump off next and see where that takes us. Okay, I might not have recorded that last part, but we have the water pump out. That is a significant amount of rust. That amount of rust does not make me feel good about what's on the inside of the engine. It's not like that's the only part that was cast iron on this, but yikes. So it's definitely froze up. That's definitely the problem here. All right, well, we turned back the hands of time, and we got a brand new one sitting here. For reference, she looks pretty much the same. With the water pump out of the way, notice a lot of rust inside the water pump. I guess no big surprise there since it was seized up. I wanted to see if we can't see inside of this and see how bad it might be in the engine. Some of those rusticles on that water pump got me a little nervous, got me thinking I might need to do some more. So let's take a peek, see if you can see what I can see. Got me a little bore scope here. We'll poke this in. Maybe I can do two things. Set the bore scope in and then give you a peek of what it sees. Unfortunately, I can't just hook the bore scope up to the camera. Let's see what we can do here. This will either be genius or completely retarded. It's like going into the Titanic here. Well, this isn't going to work very good. All right, sorry. Thought I might be able to get you guys a little sneak peek inside the engine there. Let's just say it's rusty when you go into it. So I'm going to come up with a method here to go ahead and try to flush something through there. I want to give myself the best chance I can when it comes to putting the new water pump on. I'll also go ahead and flush the radiator out as well. So if I have any big chunks, loose pieces, we'll get there. Otherwise, those little bits and pieces are just going to float around the engine. They'll get into the engine, obviously, and if there's something small, plug it up, and then we got some blockages to go into there. So undoubtedly this rust. This is just a matter of me trying to give myself a little bit better chance of doing something. Now, as you've been going along with me, the list has gotten a little bigger. We started out with some simple stuff here, right? The whole idea was get this thing oiled up, meaning pull the spark plugs, add oil in there, and then go ahead and crank it over, as well as pull the distributor out and then run the pump, the oil pump inside to go ahead and get it lubricated. Along the way, we found that we've got the water pump that's gone bad, and then we've also got the need to flush that out. I pulled the fuel pump on that, so I'm gonna go ahead and take the fuel pump apart. It had gas in it, wasn't as horrible in terms of thick as I thought it might be, so hopefully that cleans up and we don't have a big mess with the seals. So a few more things added to the list, but we'll get going. Okay, it's nice to have nice tools. I lucked out. I got this set of tools from a buddy's dad who owned an auto shop and was going out of business, retiring after a long-term mechanicum, and I swept in and got what I could. So thank you, Bobby Bonias. She's a little dirty in there. It said something at one time. I don't know. Why do I feel like that's pressed on? Yahtzee! Okay, after fighting with this for quite a bit, it finally just pounded off. And I am glad that I took it apart here. Check out these bearings. Front bearing rolls really nice. This bearing here, we'll see what it feels like here after I roll it. It's getting better. Looks like there's no crazy scoring. These definitely need all cleaned off. We got plenty of brush left. So we'll get that set. Springs are doing spring type things. We'll get this cleaned off as well. So we'll take this out. Start getting it cleaned up. Looks like the windings there, shielding on the windings is coming off. I don't know how big of a deal that is or not. If you could see that there. Yeah, some windings covering coming off. Might be a little too. We'll see what it looks like. We'll get it cleaned up. Okay, so the screws that hold this in, they look like they're maybe just a little above 1/4 inch, but unfortunately, every socket I got is nice and rounded to help your, or 1/4 inch driver I should say, is nice and rounded so it comes in, but that's not good here because it gives us too much thing, and these things are pretty stuck. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and soak these here in something to break free, and I'm going to see if I can't find the right device to take that out. In the meantime, I'll keep working on this other stuff.
Several hours in many attempts later.
Okay, so being not one that will just give up too easy, I'm still working on getting off these here. So I even got tricky and I took one of these genuine Pittsburgh adapters, 3/8 adapters here, and I ground it down to make the 5/16 profile that this was, put it in, and gave this some ugga-dugs using this. And you can see it never moved a bit. I did that little score line there to shell, and all it ended up doing was twisting off the top of this bolt here a little. So that seems to be kind of stuck here. I'll keep thinking about it, keep working on it, but when you got a cheater with a socket that fits in really nice, you'd think that thing would spin out. Both sides are pretty stuck. I don't know if there's something crazy with those threads or what they do to put them in, but I'll have to check more on that and see what I just messed up. So, to be continued on that part.
Even more time later.
Okay, I've been thinking about this generator problem I got here. What's the problem? Well, as I recall, we've got some signs here that it needs to be rewrapped. I've tried to take this off so far unsuccessfully. I know I'm at the point there that I've got to do something about this, but what exactly to do? Well, my next step, I think, is to get a little more drastic. and I know I can get the tape to rewrap those windings on that one, so I'll do that. But first I got to get those things off. What I'm going to try here is I'm going to try to clean that up, and I'm going to weld on a nut on the top of that and see if the heat and stuff will help release that, and I can get that screw out. I gave it a pretty good yank there with what I had before. It didn't really work, but that's what I'm going to try. So the first thing here is clean off all the paint on this surface, find me a nut that's going to basically take on all of this, give her some heat, put that nut on, and see if it'll spin out. So next step, let's try. Whoop, cross our fingers. Okay, I'm going to let that heat suck into that for a little bit here, and then we'll try it. Well, that weld didn't stick worse. All right, we're gonna let that sit again, and we'll take two. By golly, that worked. We'll flip this over and get that other one. Will it come off on the first try? Oh, the magic of heat. Let's just say the magic of heat's an amazing thing. Happy, happy, happy. Voila! Those little dudes got a little hot, but they're off. Now we can get to cleaning this stuff, getting it back together. Okay, off camera, I might have done a few things there instead of taking you along for the ride. So essentially, I did take the time and clean up the housing here for the generator. While I was at it, I blasted off that there for the fan shroud, got the blade up, but that's all an effort to get this thing ready to put this generator back together. I still got some more parts here to clean. I need to get this key out of here so I can pull off the end of that. And then, as you can see here, I need to go ahead and retape this because all my coil tape here is gotten dry and brittle. So we saw that. This is a better view. I've got some new tape here. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to take this off and try to rewrap it. Keep it all together in one piece. Hopefully we can do that. Let's see. Maybe get myself a little better space to work here. So this wire is supposed to also have a coating. So I want to make sure that I don't mess up the coating. I have a problem there because my coil is going to be wider than what I can coil. So I need to come up with a way to do that. Okay, it's wrapped up. So I'm not a professional generator rebuilder, but I do know that it was exposed, so I'm hoping that whatever I've done here has helped it a little bit. The tape that I used, just in case you're wondering, is this Scotch 27 glass cloth electrical tape. Very light adhesive on one side, although the adhesive does stick to itself pretty good. And not only did I wrap the coils, I wrapped the insulation that was along here as well. So hopefully that gets it set up and going. My next step now is go ahead and clean up the rest of these parts here. So I need to get this stuff apart, clean it up. We'll repaint it so that it looks all new like that. Then we'll go from there. So we'll keep on plugging. I tried to take this out before, unsuccessfully, I might add. Okay, we're gonna have to get a little more drastic here, I think. So I got two choices. Either I grind that off, which then I have to still pop it out of the shaft, or I think what I'll do is I'll sink a vice grip on there, maybe one that I don't like as much, and weld it and see if I can pop it off that way. The extra heat from the welding probably will help it get out, so we'll try that. Hooray! Ding. That's a press fit saying there, by golly. We'll clean off the vice grips, call it a day. Okay, a little grinding, and the old vice grips are none worse to the wear. These were already a flat jaw, so I wasn't too worried about them. And then there's that darn woodruff key. So now let's take this housing off. We'll use a puller for that. Alrighty, we're separated. We'll go ahead and take that bearing out of there too. Check it out. That bearing feels pretty good. You may not May not do anything on that. Might just protect it from sandblast and go from there. All right, I'm gonna do some magic of off-camera stuff here and get these things cleaned up. Okay, I've done a few things off camera here in the interest of getting things going. It seems like every time I pop out into the garage, I just want to do one little thing here or there, and sometimes you gotta wait for the paint to dry, literally. So that's what I've been doing. Cleaned up the armature here a bit, just make sure we had good contacts. I did do the testing that was suggested between continuity on that. Everything checked out okay, which theoretically, this is supposed to be a running generator from the time it turned off. There was no problem there. But as you remember, I did wrap the coils there because that paper was off. I put it apart there. I got all fancy and I've painted this up, even though I'm not, quote, restoring it right now. But man, it's hard not to just clean and paint things. One thing that I did try to do is I kept this bare and I kept the other mating surfaces bare. Just so that there's good continuity through the entire case. That way, assuming that there's some grounding happening between everything on that. So that's what I've done. Now I'm going to put this thing back together and we'll have that step done. So let's get going on that. There's another thing that I found when I took this and cleaned it all up. It's stamped, rebuilt, not even by me, but somebody's already taken a shot at it once. Probably why the bearings were still pretty decent. Okay, I've seated that bearing all the way down there. I'll figure out this part. Okay, how to hold the brushes. Hooray! Okay. One brand new, genuine, rebuilt generator. The generator is put together and rebuilt, so we should probably cap this one off by giving it a test. So what we're going to do, we'll set it in the vise. We'll hook the wires up. Since a generator is essentially a motor in reverse, we'll put a little power to it here. See if this thing spins and if it's a success. And if it seems to be spinning, we'll call that bueno for now until we get it up on the car and then really find out what's going on. So let's get this set up to test and see what we did. Even though I won't put the wood key or anything in this right now, we'll just set this on to visually see if it spins. Maybe it's a better spot we can locate this camera. Looks pretty good. I'll go get a battery. We'll hook negative up here. I'm going to jump our F terminal to our output here. And now we'll just supply power. See what this thing does. Look at that, she spins. So at least we know there's nothing wrong with those field coils we rebuilt. And it spins. Be a different thing when we know exactly what our output is once we have it put on, but I'll call that a win, and we'll go on to the next thing.